Hello and welcome to Ask Amanda Now. It is Friday. We're heading out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page, LinkedIn, YouTube. This is our short Friday session where I have invited you to submit your Strata questions. And didn't a whole lot of you respond to that? We got lots of questions in the AAN spreadsheet this week. I have chosen one to answer for you. Yeah, I'm on the road, kind of just off the main road, just pulled over to drop in and have a chat to you. As I gave you a heads up about last week, I am on my way overseas this weekend. So I'm heading from my country home to Sydney to jump on a plane tomorrow to New Zealand. I'm going to be in New Zealand hiking next week. So I am in a little town that is on the western side of the Blue Mountains. Those of you who know where I live might be able to have a guess at where I'm at. Let me know your guesses. Just sitting in the car here, nice quiet spot, I thought, and I've just pulled up next to a house that has a dog barking. So, just like home, just like home. If you're coming in and want to say hi, I would love to see your hellos. Hey, Sean. Hey, Suzanne, who is here. Great to see you. Great to have you with us, everybody, for our Ask Amanda Now session. I'm on a time frame. I'm going to dive straight into our question for this week. Just checking in with the team here that we are ready to roll. Our question for this week comes from Suzanne. Bring Suzanne's question up, team, and we will find out what it is. Quick hellos while we're doing that. Dave, hey Kareem. Suzanne's telling me to be careful hiking. Don't worry, Suzanne. I've got the pack is packed and all of the safety gear ticked off. Hey, Shana. Here is Suzanne's question. Why can't strata managers enforce fines or penalties when lot owners breach bylaws instead of eventually having to take action to NCAT? This question jumped out at me this week because this is one of the things I noticed when I was in the US, that communities do have this power to issue fines and penalties. In some states, the community has the power to what they call foreclose on the property. What does that mean? That means sell the property. If you've got a recalcitrant owner, generally someone who's not paying their levies and is in debt to the community association, they can sell the property. So amazing in our eyes, powers over in the US. So Suzanne's question was well timed because I had been sitting there at this conference in Texas a couple of weeks ago and hearing about, the fines and the penalties that had been issued by communities to owners who were breaching rules and bylaws and deeds and covenants, and thinking, oh, that seems pretty fast and free that these communities can actually fine their owners. We cannot do that in our country, I'm going to say. It has to be left to the tribunal or the courts to impose penalties for bad behavior. Suzanne's asking the question, why not? Why can't our strata managers, was actually Suzanne's question, enforce the fines? Or perhaps you're asking, Suzanne, apply the fines and penalties specifically when lot owners breach bylaws instead of eventually taking action to NCAT. Suzanne, in her longer question, has said that just takes time and money. And I think, Suzanne, you've been involved in a few issues where there's been a lot of complaints, and ultimately you've had to take the case to NCAT to be able to resolve the problem. So I've mentioned that this is not the experience in the US. In the United States, there can be fines and penalties imposed. If you haven't yet had a listen to this week's podcast episode, I think we published that one yesterday, episode number 439, what Aussie strata owners can learn from American HOAs, homeowner associations in the US. Have a listen to that episode. Lots of great takeaways from the US conference. I didn't mention this one though. I didn't mention that the US communities are able to fine and penalize owners who are breaching bylaws. I mean, what do you think? Let me know in the chat here. Do you think our strata managers, or maybe we don't want to give our strata managers that much trust. I think I'm seeing Dave saying very, very trusting. Might not want to give our strata managers that much trust to allow them to be finding our owners, but maybe our owners corporations should be able to resolve, maybe our committees should be able to resolve to issue penalties, perhaps penalties that are capped. Don't want to go too crazy here, but and maybe that would have some success in getting, I keep saying the word recalcitrant, those who consistently disobey, breach bylaws, don't pay attention to those notices. Why should we have to go to all of that trouble, time, trouble, and often expense in the tribunal? So the answer, Suzanne, is, well, they can't, because that would be against the law for there to be fines and penalties issued by an owner's corporation to an owner or to a resident. Under certainly our New South Wales law, it's quite clear that we should only be recovering levies from owners and not otherwise applying fines, penalties, or in some cases even other expenses, certainly not applying them to their lot account or their owner ledger or their levy account, levy register, whatever it is your community wants to call it. We have some pretty clear case law in New South Wales to the effect that we cannot recover fines, debts, penalties as if they were levies. If you do want the power, the authority to recover amounts that are not levies, for example, out-of-pocket expenses, administrative fees, the fees that the strata manager might incur sending notices, including breach notices, the fees that the building manager might incur being called out after hours to deal with a problem. Lawyers have taken to calling those kinds of fees and expenses bylaw breach costs or even enforcement costs. And the general consensus has been that if you have a bylaw that allows you to recover those kinds of out-of-pocket expenses, as long as you don't call them levies, as long as you don't treat them like levies, you're probably okay to on-charge those amounts and recover them from owners. But you can't just recover them as if they were a levy. You'll have to prove them probably in a court and give the owner an opportunity to say they're not fair, they're not reasonable, and fight it out. That's the kind of thing that can happen with expenses. I keep saying out of pocket because it's really important that those expenses are reasonable. They should be the actual expenses that are incurred so that they are not considered to be penalties or fines. In our country, it is considered that only the tribunal or a court has the authority, has the jurisdiction, has the power to penalize or to fine somebody. So if a community does have a bylaw to the effect that it can charge enforcement costs or bylaw recovery costs, it's really important that it explains what those costs are and how they are calculated. We do have a template enforcement cost bylaw inside our members template library, and that's quite clear that these should be the actual costs that are incurred by the owners corporation in enforcing bylaws and no more than that, because if it's considered a penalty, it may be considered to be harsh, unconscionable, or oppressive, or maybe even simply contrary to the act and therefore an invalid bylaw. So we kind of have found a way to get around this restriction, perhaps, on imposing fines and penalties where owners breach bylaws. We've got the strata lawyers have got a little bit creative. We call it something else. We call it an admin fee. But the bottom line is that if you do have, or if there are owners or residents out there who are being fined by their owners corporation, being fined for breaching the bylaws, then that's very likely to be illegal. You do need to be questioning that. What power do you have to impose these fees? We had a member in our forum, I was just answering that question today before I jumped in the car, was asking about a many thousands of dollar amount, I'm going to say, that had been put on that owner's levy register for a fee that a fire services provider had charged to the owners corporation for having to come out to the lot, getting access to the lot without the residents, or well, I'm going to say without the owner's consent, by the way, getting access to the lot and dealing with some fire safety devices in the lot. This owner didn't know anything about that, has got this $3,000 or $4,000 bill that is on their levy register, for that work and has written to the strata manager and said, hang on, didn't agree to this, didn't give you consent to do work on my lot. Where has this come from? And that strata manager, so far, by reply, has said, well, we have the power to access your lot to carry out work that we are required as an owners corporation to carry out to meet our obligations under the Act. That is what we are doing. So we accessed your lot. Presumably, the resident of the lot let the contractor in. We did the work, and because you didn't give us access at an earlier date, the contractor had to come out a second or third time. We're now on charging those expenses to you. So the question that I have asked this owner to go back and have a look at is there any bylaw that the owners corporation has in place that would allow them to on charge these costs? There's also the question of accessing your lot without your consent in a situation that I don't think was an emergency. So there can be access without consent in an emergency situation. We don't have that definition in Section 122, which is the relevant section of our legislation. Access for emergency purposes, that's not defined there. The term emergency purposes is defined in other parts of our Strata Schemes Management Act. Section 102 talks about emergencies, and that's where we've got burst pipes, we've got flooding, we've got fire, we've got a real immediate emergency. While dealing with an annual fire safety statement, an inspection for that purpose, dealing with having to upgrade some fire services devices, that is important and should be given priority. I'm not sure that it is that sufficient emergency to allow an owners corporation's contractor to go into a lot under Section 122 or exercise their right to enter a lot under Section 122 without consent. And then there's that separate issue of those thousands of dollars just being on charge. We'll just whack them onto the owner's levy register. And there has been an email from the strata manager saying, if you don't pay it, then we're just going to pursue you for debt recovery. That's not quite how it works when we're talking about on-charged expenses or admin fees or enforcement costs. They're not like levies, which are a statutory debt. A statutory debt means it is what it is. There's very little that you can say about the amount that is owed. Not the case where we have expenses that are being charged, perhaps pursuant to bylaws. They are open to challenge. They're open to be tested for reasonableness. Owners should have that right. I kind of think that's a good thing. I know a lot of you are frustrated. I'm going to head over to those comments. A lot of you are frustrated by residents and owners who are breaching bylaws, seemingly no consequences, but I'm not sure the answer is to just hand over that penalty power. Certainly not to strata managers, but to owners corporations, committees. You can kind of see how that might get out of hand in some situations. So great question. Lots to talk about there. Heading back to those comments, Bill and Ben, how are you doing? So Bill and Ben, I know you sent about 3,460 questions, but we didn't get to those ones today. I like them though. I like them as always. Bill and Ben, so many agents can't even execute a proper search. Let them lose the power to find, not a good idea. Let them loose with the power to find, not a good idea until the standard of the profession lifts. Hey, Luke. Cindy saying, I have a crazy owner constantly breaching. Deb saying, why shouldn't the owners corporation be able to, depending on the complexity of the issue? Yeah, I think if they were going to, we'd want some pretty tight guidelines around what it was and some caps on the amounts. I'm not sure exactly how it works in the United States. Those of you who've just come in a little bit late, I was saying that they do have this power in the United States to issue fines, penalties. I heard a lot of that just sort of mentioned off the cuff when I was with my American colleagues, and I thought, oh, that's not a power that we have here. Bill and Ben's giving me a case, Demetriou, yes indeed, that's the case where an owners corporation was criticised for putting those kinds of expenses, I think illegal costs, it was in the Demetriou case, Bill and Ben whacking them onto the ledger without them being tested for reasonableness or proportionality, I think was an issue in that case. Maureen saying some owners can become rogue and gang up against other owners, so could possibly abuse this and make up breaches. Others continually breach bylaws, but supported by some other owners and the strata manager. Yep. Suzanne, we too have 2 lot owners constantly breaking bylaws. The strata has now close the issues. Okay, fair enough. Cindy saying, can we raise the issue of rebate the commission on insurance where JV exists and shareholding up to 100% of premium? Tell me more about that, Cindy, if you like. We do talk about insurance here quite a bit. I was just recording a podcast episode very, very recently with someone who you all know that will come out next week. And we are talking about insurance and insurance commissions again. Just keeps on coming back. That's for sure. All right. Hey, Charles. Nice to see you. Lots of questions, as I said, quite a lot of questions this week, I have to say, and some really good ones too. It was hard for me to choose, not just because I literally pulled over the car, looked at looked at the sheet, and went, which one are we going to choose today? But because they're fantastic questions, I'm just going back to the sheet. Somebody's asked here, what are the signs of a well-run strata building or committee? Somebody's asked me, Amanda, what questions do you think I should ask at my general meeting this weekend? This is the motion on the agenda. Nice try, that one, a little bit specific for our purposes. Is it possible to pass a bylaw to transfer ongoing responsibility of the shower and bathroom waterproofing to each lot owner? That was another question that's here in the sheet. Many, many more that we are not going to get to. If you are a member inside the Your Strata Property online membership community, then please do go ahead and post your question inside our members Q&A forum. You know where it is. I'm looking at that spreadsheet. There's a few members in there who have asked questions. If you're a member and you have a question, then I am bound to you. I am bound to answer it for you in our Q&A forum. I'll be logging in there before I get on the plane to New Zealand tomorrow. If you're not a member and one of those excellent questions you've sent through this week is yours and you'd love to have that answered, then please head on over and join us inside the membership. The place to go to find out more, to join us, to get access to not just that Q&A forum, but all of our member benefits is stratamembership.com. I'd love to welcome you into our online community. That's all I got for you today. Yes, I'm going to get off the side of the road and get on the actual road and make my dinner date. It is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I do have a dinner date for Valentine's Day with my parents. Looking forward to that. I hope you are doing something special with those you love and those who love you too. I might send you some pics from NZ next week, but otherwise I'll be back next Friday for our Friday Live. Lovely to see you. Have a fabulous weekend in Strata, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.